From your analysis of what we know, and we know Israel are conducting an investigation right now, the breadth of that yet we don't know, what do you think happened?
There's clearly a mistake, a tragic mistake. However, there is an issue which is around the, if you like, the systemic control of Israeli targeting. And some of the reporting that's now starting to come out of Israel itself suggests, and in our quote, one of them said, they're basically out of control. In other words, there is no systemic control. I'm sure at the very highest levels of the Israeli military, this was not planned. But there appears to be a suggestion that at a very low level, there was a sort of disconnect between what might I call the higher intent, i.e. how we're going to conduct this campaign, and what's happening on the ground. And while I'm not sure that the suggestion from the lead of the World Central Kitchen that this was deliberate is correct, I think you can probably put it down to some fairly careless negligence on the part of the Israelis. As one of your reporters just said, 32,000 civilians have been killed. Every single one of those is a tragic mistake. And when it happens to three people who we can perhaps identify with, we're very focused on this. Actually, it's been happening continuously since October the 8th. And I think that's the thing that we need to understand. So what is it about the way in which the Israelis are conducting their operations in Gaza against an absolutely legitimate target, Hamas, who committed the most horrendous atrocities on October the 7th? So what is it about the way in which the Israelis are conducting their campaign which allows an incident like this to happen? Simon, it is not, of course, the first one.
Talking about the World Central Kitchen incident specifically, which part of that was accidental and which part was intentional? Because you can't simply say that, the missiles were set off accidentally. There were three separate vehicles in a convoy travelling almost 2 kilometres apart. They clearly were targeted, but it's the reasons why they were targeted. Are you saying that was accidental? Because, they believed that there was a Hamas fighter in each of those vehicles, and in which case was the calculation made that it was worth the sacrifice of British lives, of aid workers' lives, in order to eliminate a single Hamas fighter?
I think exactly what you put your finger on it, because that's one of the suggestions that started to come through for some of the papers, that there was some suggestion, there was some reporting, some observation, presumably by a drone, that a Hamas fighter appeared on the scene close to these vehicles, and they decided it was somehow associated with with these vehicles, and therefore they attacked
Simon,
it.
What identifies a Hamas fighter? How would they know from the...
Yeah, no, absolutely. If I may, one of the things that's been going on, one of the most interesting things about the way in which the Israelis conducted their campaign is that their use of artificial intelligence. They've been using these two artificial intelligence programs, and they've kind of predetermined there's some 37,000 people who they regarded in Gaza as essentially Hamas or Hamas linked. And essentially for them, the targeting was clear. They could be engaged unless there was a very good reason not to do so. So the kind of suggestion, and it can only be a suggestion at the moment, it's coming through, is that somebody who, on their intelligence system, which is as imperfect as all intelligence systems are, somehow was associated with Hamas, had appeared on the scene close to the convoy, somehow associated with a convoy, and therefore they decided to attack it. What then comes in is a calculation of what you might call collateral damage. And again, the reporting from Israel, this is from reservists, intelligence officers who served there, saying that they're being prepared to accept up to 15 to 20 casualties, civilian casualties, for every Hamas fighter they've engaged. So they looked at this and got Hamas fighter associated with this convoy, we will attack. Now, the intelligence was clearly faulty, but that's the kind of calculation that's going on. The other thing that's coming through very clearly from some of the people who are actually conducting this linkage between intelligence and operations as such is how little time they've got to make their decisions. It's literally down to seconds. And that's partly because the targets are fleeting, but also because the sheer pressure of targets coming through. So actually what we've got is a systemic issue, which is the way in which Israelis are conducting their operations is such that while the targets may well be legitimate in terms of their own terms, destroying Hamas, actually their acceptance of collateral damage is so high, and the amount of time they've got for targeting is so little, that incidents like this, absolute tragedies, and there have been 32,000 of them, are occurring.
Simon, part of this war is actually a PR war. Israel need to try and behave in a way that means they don't have a situation where their major allies, the US, the UK, say, we can't support you anymore. An incident like this, how much does that actually change Israel's ability to achieve what they want to?
Oh, I think you put it absolutely spot on, because it is all about, at the end of the day, it's about hearts and minds. It's not just the hearts and minds of the Israeli people, but also about their allies and their willingness to support them. But it's also about actually the day after. So even if Israel eliminated tomorrow every single Hamas fighter in the area, would that make a difference? Would Gaza be a safe place? Would it be a secure place? The answer is no, because it's no stage in the way in which they conduct this campaign has Israel actually taken any interest or any concern about what the view of the Palestinian people are going to be. I mean, and that's the challenge of this kind of war. We call them war amongst the people. It's a war amongst the people, and actually, therefore, you've got to find a way to bring people on side, and the Israelis have not done that one iota. Their long-term aspiration, which has been agreed by the international community for a two-state solution, absolutely not on the table. And even the issue about control of areas they've conquered has not been properly covered. We've just witnessed 3 weeks of activity in the Al-Shifa hospital in the north, in Gaza City. Now, the Israelis first went into that site in November, but because they didn't put any kind of control mechanism in place, in other words, they didn't do what their job actually is supposed to be. If you occupy an area, you are required by international humanitarian law to actually provide civil control on that. They didn't do that. Hamas re-infiltrated, and then they re-attacked into Al-Shifa. And that's been the case throughout. So the Israelis have actually not done what they were required to do, which is, as I said, under international humanitarian law, if you're the occupying power, you broke it, you own it. That's the law.